Hi everybody, thanks for being here and yeah, congratulations, we survived the lunch. Hopefully people coming in. My name is Roman and I'm from Red Hat, where I'm responsible for security community strategy and engagement. And today I slightly rephrased my presentation, which is still going to be about our approach to CRA readiness, but I structured it to the why, what, and wow. So let's see how it goes. A usual disclaimer, nothing in this presentation is a legal advice, right? CRA is kind of a beast and evolving and etc. And we don't kind of post or announce the final statements and etc. All of our best guesses and etc. So just a little bit of disclaimer. Now, we're going to start with the why, the first one. Why we actually do this work, right? Of course, because we all love this guy, right? This is kind of cool. Mascots, this is why we're all here, we're all engaged into the CRA. What else? Why we do this work? Because of this. Do you remember chess picture? Is it different from the original chess picture that we used to see? Yes, and probably if you're attentive enough to details and to answer the question why we do the CRA, as AI goes wrong sometimes with generating these fun pictures, we also need to actually close some gaps and correct some mistakes and fix some things, right? Like here in the spelling of the word. So we're here to make it better, right? We're here to tune some things and to make it applicable and actionable for everybody. So this is why. Again, now why CRA is actually good. I know this is all complicated, and this is true. This is acceptable. This is heavy regulation the first time, right, when we see regulation against the software, and that touches open source notably, and etc. But I tried to summarize this quote. I certainly heard this notion from 3-5 security open source like gurus that I talked to, but I think this is the common sense from the community. CRA actually has a potential to make more for supply chain security and open source software ecosystem health as a whole at scale in just a few years than we kind of security nerds been lurking over the developers and these good practices trying to convince everybody for decades now. Right, so this is kind of good, and I prefer to think from that perspective. But yeah, it's still a lot of work to be done. Now, again, why we do this? We probably all have heard from Daniel Steinberg those kind of inquiries to open source projects. We also have some of them, just to not repeat the usual examples. That one against what is the libc, if I'm not mistaken, that we witnessed personally. And if you can see on these smaller screens, this is queries to vendor, right? And kind of, can you respond yes or no? Like, hello, how do you comply with the US Resilience Act, dear libc library? Okay, is this secure software development lifecycle follow the like the good practices? Do you comply with EU CRA requirements in general? Do you provide proof of conformity regarding adherence to EU CRA? So show me proof. And, of course, thanks for giving us exactly 2 weeks for responding, right? So you're going to respond in the 2 weeks. So this is kind of why we as a community, of course, were interested to do it right, to kind of fix all of these things generally. Now, why we do this? Because PDEs are everywhere, right? This is I hope, very clear now to everybody, not only to us who is in this room well aware of it, but everywhere. And I specifically lie down here the classes of the products with digital elements that defined by the CRA, and highlighting once again the majority of the PDEs, they don't have class. That's they call the REST 19, basically all the software. And I highlighted in bold some of the categories like operating systems, hypervisors, and some other types of software that actually we produce as a manufacturer that is in scope of the CRA. So that is why we're doing this as a company. Now, a little bit to the complications again, why we do it in this way, like why we want to be engaged and we wanted to help from different perspective, because Red Hat, one of the companies that actually holds the weirdest role, the oddest one under the regulation, because we are a manufacturer, of course, as a provider of open source software solutions at the enterprise level for the global market, including EU, right? It's just, it is what it is. Red Hat has a potential open source software steward for some of the projects, and I will tell you more about that in a moment. And of course, Red Hatters as individuals, contributors and maintainers, thousands of Red Hatters do this good work every day, contributing and maintain projects, either like as employees, some of them at their personal capacity, and etc., because it's open source, right? We all come together as the community to do the right things. So that brings a lot of complexities, and that's why we try to be engaged and try to actually lead these efforts in open source communities and also in EU standardization bodies, like we talked yesterday and today about the standardization efforts, that we also quite engaged because of these reasons, because we would like to help with our expertise, and we would like to make it right for all the parties that are engaged into the ecosystem, which is quite complicated task, as we all already learned. Now, once we pass the why we're doing this, this time comes to the what, right? The what, we, of course, big corporation, and we just having all of these complexities, all of these roles, we can't do it without the program that we set up internally, and we have our CRA program, which is actually led by brilliant guys who are also in the room with us today, and all other Red Hatters that engaged in it. We break it down to 8 work streams, which actually covers everything from awareness and communication, participation in standards, upstream engagement, manufacturer and steward obligations, including all of the necessary things that needs to be done to make sure we are compliant, and to the adjustment of the secure development life cycles, and etc., etc., etc. Vulnerability management, just because it's the huge part of the CRA itself, if not the main part of the requirements. It's the separate stream for us. Conformity and certification, still work to be done, right? How to affix CE mark to the piece of software, and all of these attestations and etc. Data collection and legal. So we kind of brought all the relevant departments to the one table and built up this program. I'm not going to dive in each of these streams. I'm going to highlight some of the things that we do. But yeah, so this is kind of complex thing for us, and of course we have no chance to be successful if we just do it randomly. So yes, we have the CRA program internally. Now switch over to our approach to the manufacturers, requirements for manufacturers. We all know that they are kind of codified under CRA itself, and more importantly, they're going to be further broken down in the standards and etc. And I just posted here to have it in front of us. Security by design by default, risk management, data communication, documentation, vulnerability management, incident reporting in the certain strict timelines, due diligence for third parties, SBOMs, disseminate security updates, conformity, CE marking, and all of these, like 5 years support and handle vulnerabilities after the project, right, placed on the market, and 10 years to retain documentation and make updates available also. So this is, I mean, there are all difficult requirements, I would say, but also on the other hand, there is nothing that is new besides maybe strict timelines and strict deadlines and etc. Something is new, of course, like conformity assessment, CE marking, and kind of reporting in the certain to be done formats. But generally, they're all good practices that I think based on the standards that's already there and on the state of the art of the security development practices that we as a company, of course, have been following for decades. And some of the examples you see on the slides, like risk management approach, is the core in the CRA, and I think the standards also that are under development takes in account all these standards. SDLC frameworks like OWASP SAM, for example, or NIST ISS DF or others, we all kind of follow all of these things. Incident response and coordinated vulnerability disclosure, also quite important piece of stuff, but it's also already written in the standards, and PT3 vulnerability management is, of course, takes in account all of these existing standards. That also applies to access controls, encryption and validation, and secure defaults configuration, which maybe should be tweaked a little bit, but it is there. Yes, S-bombs is difficult, but again, from reading over this list, nothing is kind of brand new except, as I mentioned, CE marking. Maybe everything else we've been already doing as a big companies, right? At least for the big tech corporations, these practices, hopefully already followed by a majority of them. But of course, they will lead to process and documentation adjustment because they are there, but not in the same language, not the same timelines, so that could be tweaked, and we understand this, of course, and we will be making the relevant adjustments to it. So that was for kind of manufacturers and our approach. Like, yeah, we do follow the practices, but then we're going to make sure everything is in alignment with the requirements, kind of adjusting, not building something entirely new. For the stewards, this is a little bit different. I mentioned we are stewarding projects, and this is, we don't have the final list of the projects yet to share. And we also understand there is no opt-in or opt-out from being steward, besides some of the considerations on that demand. I think we as a community checked with the commission a couple of times about this, and they confirmed, yes, I mean, you can't say, hey, I'm opting in to be steward. You should be qualified as a steward based on the definition in the CRA. Yes, you can make the certain steps so that then you can be clarified as a steward, but qualified as a steward, but not like, okay, today I can be, tomorrow, you know, I just simply say, hey, I'm opting out, and I am not, so that's not going to work. That's why we developed our own framework to evaluate the projects that we are potentially going to be stewarding, and some of the questions that we were asking to ourselves and to those projects, open source projects that we support as a company. Is this FOSS project actually a PDE, right? And that could help actually cross out a lot of the repos just out there on GitHub, for example, documentation and etc. So they're clearly not the products with digital elements by definition. So that's the first one. Why this FOSS project is important for us? Is Red Hat is very, very, very important. Should we, continue to do this, or it's stale or something? So this is kind of cleanup activity. How we support the project development and collaboration platforms and developer platforms, so that to understand what specific qualifiers we have to be as stewards. Then we ask to these projects or related how governance is structured, or is there be a better potential steward for some projects. Just because we support thousands of open source projects, and a lot of them are under umbrella of the foundations. Some of them are in transition mode, and some of them are probably good to be donated to foundations because they are there is a perfect match with these projects with somebody else, with something else is already there in the foundation. Probably we are not best steward for this project, so we're going to shop around and ask our partners partners, hey, do you consider yourself being a steward, and what we can do collectively to make it happen? Because, of course, we can be not the best steward for all the projects, so we don't strive to kind of cover everything. And based on this approach, selected projects were classified into buckets that we call basic and champion stewardship categories. And I will explain in the next slide what that means. But the key principle that we follow to the projects that we talk to, we wanted to understand community practices and governance rules for each project, and offer targeted help where needed. We're not here to dictate as a kind of big, ugly company for open source project, hey, now you're gonna go this, and that, right? Just because we support this project. No, we're gonna first find out what they do and what specific help is needed to better adhere to kind of stewardship requirements that are not final yet, but still we kind of get a sense of it. So this is our approach, our credo. To not break things, but follow the community rules. And I tell you the interesting facts, that all the projects, there are different, and there are huge diversity of the communities and etc. And we really wanted to follow their approach, their culture, and etc. So this is the key principle for us. Now, requirements. It is tricky, right? Again, because nobody knows what the requirements exactly are, but probably we all kind of agree on the basic set of 3 or 4 requirements that are kind of derived from the CRA text itself, and we kind of applied this to the basic stewardship category, which means that there are projects that need to follow the bare minimum requirements for stewards, for us to be in this stewards. That, for us, means having security policy in the broader terms so far. Again, the quality and what should be written is yet to be done with Eclipse and other partners as a white paper standards and etc. Vulnerability management, specifically, focusing on this aspect and also defining what means actively exploited vulnerabilities and how to actually figure out whether they actively exploited. Incident response, again, with a specific emphasis on severe incidents and how to handle it, to have this process in place. And if infrastructure, right, if they manage infrastructure. And secure development practices, again, in broader terms, how you do dependency management, security scans, MFAs, code reviews, and etc. Of course, this is on the bottom of the slide, the new part, cooperate with MSAs and CSRTs and ENISA. That's yet to be done, and we, of course, don't kind of require right now this from our projects, but that would be included into the kind of basic requirements or kind of checklist or whatever we are going to work on with projects that will be doing the basic bare minimum level of the requirements for us to be a steward for them. Now, going to champion steward, we also understand that we don't want to. We wanted to apply the best practices for the best projects that we are doing, for the most kind of recognized and most valuable projects with a huge base of the users and etc. And we want to go ahead, and on top of the basic things, we wanted to apply something else, right? Like maybe help them from our side to generate and store SBOMs, right? Maybe help them with security self-assessments, which should be stored in the repo itself. Yes, but by the way, SBOMs, like, still unclear, is it strict requirements for open source project and the stewards? It's for manufacturers, right? So that's why it's in champion category. OpenSSF baseline, we're targeting level 1, would be the good, first step at least, and decent first step. OpenSSF best practices page at the passing level, also as well as the SALSA level 1 if they do builds. That would be good for the kind of champion projects that are big enough. So that's they can be seen as the really champions and spearheading the industry security practices. Now we've done preliminary assessment. Again, no official quotes, but we assessed a bunch of our projects that we most likely will be stewards for. Some of them are obvious, right? And probably it's clear for everybody, like Fedora and maybe CentOS and etc. that we're hugely supporting. And based on our preliminary quick analysis, actually, we find out that for the more than the 70% of the projects, requirements are met, at least for basic stewardship, again, with a huge caveats, like we didn't really investigate what's in the policy itself, right? But having the fact that it's there and the contacts are there and etc., so that's more and less the percentage. So this is good news, actually, that a little bit exceeded our initial expectations, so which is good baseline, so the good start. And again, this is yet to be done. The granular requirements yet to be done. Now the last part, the wow. What we have learned as we have done this exercise. Challenges, right, and lessons learned. A lot of challenges, even for the big company. Kind of one can argue, okay, the Red Hat, you can comply with whatever and do whatever, and even we don't have infinite resources. Boom. On this note, yes, and we see the big ambiguity in the CRA itself, and hopefully the coming implementing acts and guidelines that are under development right now could clarify what that actually means and different use cases and different definitions that's written, because otherwise it's going to be a nightmare in the courts and etc. So nobody wants that. But we do understand this ambiguity, and this is really hard right now. Especially if you remember, we kind of, within our CRA program, we're working with all the departments within the company. And of course, some of them that just don't understand, right? Okay, the law is here, why we just can't comply, right? It's like law compliance, we used to do it as a corporation for years. So that's ambiguity and nuances is actually quite a big deal. Unknowns, right? Standards, implementing documents are work in progress. Still, of course, many of them are already at the decent stages, and some of them under HC are published. Very good, I think, around a dozen of them, maybe a little bit less. But this is a good, huge progress. But they're still not official, and yeah, this is so many unknowns, and it's so hard to plan within our CRA program based on these unknowns. 41 standards that was initially requested by the EU Commission to be implemented by ESOS. This is huge. Yes, they are broken down to lower amounts of the standards, but to follow all of them and just to maintain awareness what's happening there, I'm not talking about contributing to them, is huge effort, right? It's not like even not one person full-time job, it's significantly more just to figure out what's happening, right? And of course we wanted to contribute, of course we wanted to provide our expertise and etc. So this is a big challenge that we are facing in our CRA program. The timeline is a challenge, and we are not only talking about the timeline of the law to be in the full force in 2 years from now, but timeline between the standards are published and the enforcement is, it doesn't exist, right? This is no gap between it. So, and this is a really huge challenge to be prepared. Of course, we do our best, as I mentioned. We kind of apply our best judgment and try to make sure we are on top of things so that to predict what will happen. But we don't know for sure, which frankly freaks lawyers out, right? So, and finally, alignment. As I mentioned, there is a multi-stakeholder job, and I really admire the work of our program managers Paul and Dave that's in the room that are working so hard to align all of these different stakeholders internally, which is very, very big challenge. And it sounds like CRA brings to the table quite a few of them, right? And if you think about the product management itself, because CRA affects the requirements, right, for the development processes and ultimately for the products. And something like procurement also engaged, because when somebody in a company has due diligence, right, it triggers the bell immediately, because due diligence is well understood term under the procurement in general and under the legal stuff in general, which is completely different from the due diligence requirements for assessing open source dependencies that we have in the CRA, right? We kind of need to handle these things. So this is really something new, and this is a challenge and lesson we are still learning. But to wrap this up on the positive note, we're absolutely confident, 100%, that we can make CRA even better, and this is, we think, how we should do it, and this is effectively how we do it right now with collaboration. This is a little bit of quote from our blog post that we posted, I think, a few months ago, our review on the CRA and impact on the open source ecosystem. We genuinely think that it goes far beyond just the CRA compliance, right? It's call for the entire open source ecosystem to unite, take action, support one another, and importantly, this is regardless of the role of each of us, right? If we are steward, manufacturer, maintainer, we invite you to join to collaborations like this, like Eclipse.org, for example. As I mentioned to a few of us during the coffee breaks, it's really like an open source way. You can join discussions at any time. You can join the calls. They're free to participate. And that could be surprising for somebody outside of the community, but we just do it in this way. And we should also recognize a collective responsibility to evolve yesterday's often afterthoughts, right? Security to default expectations, which again, we were struggling as a security professional. I'm personally 20 years in security, and I'm doing these convincing exercises to developers and to the rest of the crowds in the companies and etc. But this is the right time. This is the right momentum. Let's not waste this good crisis to make CRA even better. So this is call to action. Thank you. Let's build it together.